What's up, everybody? Clayton Sayfie here with EJ Holland. We're from the Wolverine.com here on Wolverine TV. Remember to head over to our site, Wolverine.com. Use promo code BLUE60 for 60 days for free of our premium content here. This episode, we're talking about Tyler Morris, 2022 wide receiver, who Michigan is in on early, but we're just going to break him down, talk about if he could possibly be a commit soon for the Wolverines or for whoever ends up landing his services. But EJ, let's start with that timeline. Could he be somebody who's one of the next few guys here in Michigan's 2022 class?
So Michigan already has Tyler Martin committed in the 2022 class. In the 2021 class, they have Tyler McLaurin. So, they have an affinity for guys named Tyler. But yeah, no, I mean, I feel like Tyler definitely loves Michigan early on. At the same time, he's such a measured kid. I think a lot of people have pegged him to land at Michigan and feel like he's a Michigan lean early on. And I do too, but I don't think that Tyler's the type of kid to just pull the trigger now. There's no reason for him to do that, especially with the ongoing dead period. He still really likes Notre Dame, and I think he wants to get there. Penn State is becoming an increasingly intriguing option for him. So I would say those are the big three schools in his recruitment right now. He recently got an offer from Texas. I know he wants to kind of travel a little bit and see some schools outside of the Midwest. So for Tyler, I think I don't think a decision is necessarily imminent. Again, Michigan's in a really good spot early on and probably has the overall edge at this point. But he's still very open to some of his other options. So I feel like Tyler's going to take his time. He's a really smart kid. He's really measured. He's a guy that's not going to rush into anything. He's one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. So he's just a really good kid with a good head on his shoulders, and I think he's gonna take his time, weigh his options, and carefully analyze everything.
Yeah, you see him right behind EJ there in that picture. And he's a guy that played with JJ McCarthy. And I think that's why, like you said, kind of, people are like, okay, this is a kid that could possibly and maybe even likely will end up at Michigan when he does make that decision. How big is that JJ factor? Of course, JJ played with him before transferring down to IMG for his final season. Now, Tyler doesn't have a senior or a junior season, excuse me, but um, how big is that factor? I know they're tight, but I mean, the ins and outs of even that relationship in both of those guys' recruitments.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes teammates aren't as tight as you think they'd be. You saw that with like Rocco Spindler and Garrett Dellinger. But in this case, I think that Tyler and JJ are very close. They're really good friends. Tyler actually visited Michigan with JJ before the dead period back in, I want to say March, before the pandemic really started to hit. So, they played together for years at the same high school at Nazareth Academy. They're part of the same Club 7-on-7 team, Midwest Boom. So they went out to a couple of tournaments together across the country this past off season. So overall, I feel like they have a really good connection. They still keep in contact. I just talked to Tyler a couple of weeks ago, and he told me that he watched JJ's game on ESPNU, and he's always rooting for him and keeping tabs on him and exchanging text messages and all of that. So they have a really good connection, and JJ's a really personable guy, a guy you want to play with, a guy that you want to follow as a leader. And I think that Tyler knows what it's like to play with JJ, and that makes Michigan an even more comfortable option on top of the relationships he already has with the coaching staff. Coach Gaddis, Coach Moore have recruited him consistently over the last year, have maintained a lot of contact with him, and those are two of the strongest recruiters on this Michigan staff. So overall, I think kind of everything's lined up the right way for Michigan to land Tyler, and JJ is definitely a big factor in that.
Yeah, and JJ's not shy about going on Twitter and just, mentioning these like kids that he wants to join him at Michigan. Obviously, he has a direct line to Tyler Morris, but that is going to be an interesting factor in his recruitment because, like you said, I mean, he's a receiver. You want to play with a good quarterback. He knows JJ. He's familiar with him. JJ's obviously a great quarterback and looks to be like he's going to be that at the next level, too. If someone were to land Tyler Morris, if Michigan lands him, what is that skill set? I know you've been out to see him quite a few times. I think we even joked a couple of weeks ago on one of these videos. I was like, you're seeing him every other day here, but I mentioned he doesn't have a season, but he's still participating in some of those 7-on-7s and just obviously getting work in on his own. What is that skill set? What would a team like Michigan get if they were to land him?
Yeah, so I think that Tyler is one of those kids who doesn't look like a super athlete. You know, if you went out to a camp, he would just kind of blend in with the crowd because he's not, a 6'3" guy. He's not super, jacked up. He's not built like a running back like counterpart Caleb Brown. He's just, he's about 5'10", 170. Just looks like another guy, and then when he gets out on the field, he completely kills people. It's like so funny to watch. I was at a camp a couple weeks ago, and one DB was like, "Oh, I want Tyler Morris," and Tyler kind of grinned, and then he just shook him, routed him up. So he runs such precise, great routes. Absolutely terrific route runner. Great hands. I've seen Tyler a million times. I think I've only seen him drop 2 balls the entire time I've seen him. He's just such a natural pass catcher. He's a glider. He's deceptively speedy, so he can take guys down the field. He can, again, his route running is probably what stands out the most to me. He can run everything that you ask him to, and he looks so smooth. And then the intangibles, he's just such a really smart player. Not only his coaches, but guys that play with him, against him, that I've talked to, all compare him to a guy like Larry Fitzgerald. They're like, hey, he does everything the right way. And so I maybe not necessarily from a skill set standpoint, but from that intangible factor, Larry Fitzgerald's a guy that's been brought up by multiple people when I talk to them about Tyler Morris. So he's that type of kid. And then he's just such a playmaker when he gets out on the field. And I think he would be a perfect fit in Michigan's offense because he can do a little bit of everything. And Josh Gaddis can kind of move him around. He can be a slot guy. He can be an outside guy. You can do different things with Tyler. And if you pair him with fellow Chicago prospect Caleb Brown, I mean, that's a dangerous duo, and another video for another time. But Tyler, in his own right, is a top 100 kid nationally for next cycle easily. I mean, he might even be a top 50 guy.
Yeah, ranked as number 70 right now in the country, but is certainly a top prospect and one to watch and one we will continue to monitor here at thewolverine.com. And remember to head over and utilize our promo code BLUE60 over at the Wolverine for 60 free days of our premium content on the Rivals Network. But we'll catch everybody next time here on Wolverine TV.